So here's one for you. So no sooner did I finish my sort of video walking around Lumpini Park, and I'm walking over this grassy area, and I think to myself, oh, you know what? I need to pay my AIS bill. So I stop, and I'm just like standing there on my phone, looking to the app for my cell phone provider, and I look up, and there's these 4 girls from school, because you know how they wear uniforms, right? And I've heard of this happening before. So they come up to me and they say, hi, we're working on a school project and we're supposed to talk to foreigners. So we have some questions for you. And their English was excellent. And I've heard of this happening before. And I'm like, oh, cool, this is my opportunity to, like, you know, maybe practice some Thai. And so immediately I said, oh, sawadee krap. But they all laughed and they said, no, in English. I said, once again. This has happened to me before in Mexico and other things. You know, I get there and I like want to practice my Spanish, right? And I immediately open my mouth and they start speaking English. And I speak a little bit of Spanish, or broken Spanish. This happened to me in Spain too, in Barcelona, and I would speak a little bit of Spanish. And they're like, can't you speak English? I'm like, yes. They're like, okay, well, let's speak English. I'm like, damn it. Anyway, so so they asked me a few questions, and they asked me, you know, what do you think of the healthcare system? Like, where did you come from? And they said, where are you from in the United States? I said, California. One of the girls was like, ooh. I was like, which I get it, you know, it's well marketed globally. Let's just say that. Anyway, so they started asking me about healthcare in the United States. What do you think about healthcare in the United States? And I said, well, it's excellent. The quality is excellent. The cost is unobtainable, sadly, for some. I was lucky. I had healthcare provided by my employer. As well as by me. It wasn't all me. It wasn't all my employer. I still had to pay about $5,000 a year, but in comparison to the amount of my salary, it was negligible. And you know, when I had experiences like I would end up in the ER, when I got into the ER, I think maybe once, let's say on average, because one year I did go there 3 times because I couldn't figure out what was wrong with my diverticulitis. You know, I would go and the copay was like $50, right? And they do a number of tests because they're like, we got to figure out how to get rid of this guy's pain, and then he'll follow up later with his primary care physician. But the point is that Kaiser Permanente out of California, I used their facilities in San Diego and also in Maui, and the care was exceptional. And I had an opportunity to see one of the invoices, you know, that itemizes everything. And, you know, so for my $50 or $100, whatever copay it was, to use the ER facilities, you know, one time, and they didn't have a significant amount of tests during this one time, it was $8,500. You know, so again, there's no secret to the excessive cost of medical care in the United States. But, you know, I hope let's also agree that the quality is quite excellent. Now, I've also had experience having healthcare here in Thailand, which, you know, again, it's kind of a bummer, but it's good that I have the experience so I can at least speak to it knowledgeably, not just hearsay, meaning that I've been harmed. I've been in an accident, and then I've also, like, eaten bad food and ended up in the hospital for, like, you know, 2 days in the Philippines as well. Anyway, so I've gotten to experience a fairly public hospital, which I talked about in another video, which was Pattaya General Hospital, in which case I was basically in the ER, you know, and they served me just fine, and the bill was, you know, $13, $14. And then I've also been in Pattaya International Hospital, actually, where I have a, you know, an ID card membership kind of thing. And I think, you know, a general visit there was, you know, like 1,000, 1,200 baht, something like that. Great care, and medication was, you know, reasonably priced. And I've also been to Bumrungrad. I've never experienced like any degree of excessive surgery or that sort of thing in Bumrungrad, and I've had a very dear friend who's been part of Bumrungrad, and also a very dear friend who was part of the Bangkok hospital system, Bangkok Hospital Pattaya and Bangkok Hospital Bangkok, with a brief stay in Bangkok Hospital Phuket. And the care from his experience was excellent, and the cost was, you know, in comparison to US or the UK, much cheaper. Anyway, so we're having this discussion. I look over my left shoulder, and there is what I learned afterward. I thought it was a police officer, It was a security officer. It was a park security officer. I also learned, and I learned a little later too, that there is a school attached to the park. So potentially, this overzealous security officer was protecting somebody, whatever. Anyway, so I look over my shoulder, I'm like, hey, how's it going? And so the girls like look up at him and they're like, you know, concerned or something. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? And they're like, and so I'm like, what, can't you guys talk to me or something? And so he says something to them in Thai and they're like, oh, okay. And I look at them, I look at him and laughingly, like basically just like this, I'm like, dude, what, they can't talk to me? I mean, I can't talk to them, what's going on? And he didn't respond to me. He just looked at them and said something in Thai, and which is fine, we're in Thailand. I said, oh, okay. And then they just like kind of said, okay, thank you, and then left. I said, okay. And then I just like kept walking, and he was behind me on his bicycle and said something else in Thai. I don't know whether he like said it into his radio or he was saying it to me or whatever. So then I just walked around and I sat down on a rock because I'm like, okay, well, I still got to pay this AIS bill thing. I don't want to get distracted by that. I'd rather have my phone shut off. And and so then I'm doing it, and I look up, and there come the four girls again, right? They're like walking down the sidewalk. And I look up to them, and I said, so were you guys like not allowed to talk to me or something? And one of them, who was sort of the more outgoing of the group, she just nods and she says, thank you, and like walks away. So I'm like, what? That's very bizarre. Now this comes on the heels of me seeing a report from my buddy Rike, who, if you know anything about Southeast Asia, and certainly the Philippines, then you know of Rike's Life Beyond the Sea, and he's got like 50,000 plus subscribers to his YouTube channel. Great guy. And thankfully honored to be able to say I'm a friend of his, and he and I have been able to hang out and chat about the world, save the world over some Vietnamese pho. And anyway, so he posted recently an article, I can't remember, I'll put a link to it below, but it's like not Thai Inquirer, but it's like Thai News something website, about what was referred to for a while in the Philippines as the Philippines, the bullet scam, where people would go through security with their luggage in, I believe in Manila, maybe it was others, but certainly Filipino airports, let's just say for the sake of argument, Manila, and after putting their luggage through security on the other side, the security guards would magically find this bullet in your luggage, one single bullet, pull you aside, threaten you with, I guess jail time or something. Or you have the option of not going through due process and paying them the fine right there. So that was very convenient for their monthly income. And so therefore it was referred to as the bullet scam. And so Duterte, along with some other officials, I believe, who didn't want the public embarrassment, which I believe it turned out to be quite embarrassing for the Philippines, of being known as a country that was not welcoming to foreigners and had no integrity in their airports, as well as, quite frankly, you could question the level of safety that occurred. If there's all of a sudden, yeah, there's these, we got these like extra bullets just laying around, let me just throw them into the luggage. Well, where have those been? Regardless. So there was this article that I saw posted that is now happening, has happened twice, reportedly, in Thailand, in Suvarnabhumi, to two guys from America. One of them, in fact, was, I guess, I don't want to say decorated, but certainly a well-respected fireman. I can't remember his other occupation. In Pennsylvania, but nonetheless, he was certainly a well-respected tax-paying citizen, if you will, from the United States. I believe the other one was as well. I also believe he potentially served our country in the, I can't remember. Regardless, it's like they certainly weren't thieves by any means, and so this was sort of ridiculous that this was happening to these poor guys. So I read that. Then I see another post from a guy in a Facebook group that I'm a part of called like Bangkok Expats or something. And he shares a story of how near Don Muang Airport, he's driving along in his car with his Thai wife, and they were pulling over cars who presumably had a foreigner in it, whether driving or not, asking them for ID, asking them for basically proof that they were not overstaying a visa. And I'm not sure how sort of the police, I assume immigration uses the police department for enforcement. I don't really know how that's connected, but regardless, the report is that the cops pulled us over, kind of thing. They weren't sort of totally articulating the law enforcement agency that was doing it to them. But they were saying, hey, look, so have your passport and prove to us that you're not overstaying your visa. This guy didn't have his passport with him, but he had his Thai wife with him. And she's explaining to him in Thai, like, look, this is my husband. Like, what are you guys talking about? This is hello. And so they, he sits there on the side of the road while his wife drives back to the house, gets his passport, which has his spousal visa in it. And he brings that back, shows it to the police officer, the law enforcement officer. And then he's free to go. And then, of course, comes home and posts this story. So with those two things in mind, and then this guy shaking us down in the middle of, this public park, right? I was like, well, this is kind of weird. and again, I wasn't sort of like, indignant about it or whatever. The first thing I thought was, well, hopefully he's like protecting these girls. And he's like, hey, so, like you're talking to this adult guy. And, you probably shouldn't like walk up to random strangers in a park. I don't know. I mean, I can tell you right now that random strangers during the day in the middle of Thailand, in the middle of Bangkok, I don't know. From my perspective, it's an incredibly safe city, but I don't know what it's like if you're a young girl. High school, university. I believe they were in high school. I don't believe that the university students wear uniforms here, but I don't know. I should have asked them if they went to university, actually. Regardless, I don't know why. So I asked a couple of my buddies, both of which American guys who have lived here a long time. And by a long time, I mean more than at least 3 years. One of them for, I believe, over a decade. Dana, Rockstar Dana. And they both basically said the same thing, which was it wasn't the police. It was, I almost said mall security. It was guys from TJ Maxx that were like, dude, you can't get this at 30% off. You get back there and pay full price. No, it was park security. And I'd never heard that happening before. That's never happened to me before. But one of them, James, did say, oh, yeah, and there's this school attached to the park. So maybe the guy was like, making sure that the kids weren't unsafe. I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to share that because, where Lumpini is, it's a pretty darn safe area from my perspective. I mean, like right across over by Siloam, down by Saladang. I was there last night, Sunday night, for Walking Street, for the Siloam night market. And, families everywhere. I felt incredibly safe. Again, I felt safe. Who knows what the reality is for high school children. I don't know. But they travel in packs. I mean, there was 4 of them. They all had phones, undoubtedly. Well, they did. I saw them. They were like looking down at the questions they had for their school project. So I don't know. That's weird. Again, I've heard of this scenario from like many other YouTubers. It's like if you want to practice your English or if you want to practice your Thai, hang out in a park, and eventually, like, you will run into university students that want to practice their English and have things like this. They have like these projects that they engage in. And so I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm now like part of the club because I'm, a foreigner living in a foreign land and I'm hanging out at a public park and they're university students and now I get to converse with them and maybe I'll find out more about the university systems over here, which I have a very big interest in. I'm a huge fan of learning and I pray that everybody gets a chance to go to university. So anyway, it's Mike from LiveMyAssOff.com. taking a little stroll here away from Lumpini Park, and just thought I'd share with you my experience over there recently, and say I hope you're living the dream, because if you're not living the dream, then there's a chance that you too are completely baffled by certain scenarios that occur in your life when you interface with college students. Who knows? Talk to you soon. Ciao.